Welcome back to Let's Automate It with Robin, AI and automation for non-techies. And I've been really looking forward to this video. Today, we're going to look at how we can automate a lot of the tasks in LinkedIn using a brand new service available through n8n called Browserflow. This is their website. We're looking at them right now, browserflow.io. I think they released about 3 or 4 months ago for make.com. I noticed that on LinkedIn. I've been waiting for them to do a version for n8n, and about a day or two ago, they released a community node for n8n. We'll talk more about community nodes in a moment, but I do want to mention right up front that if you're watching this video and you're on n8n and you're using a cloud-hosted version of n8n, well, cloud-hosted versions of n8n do not allow community nodes. So this node right now won't be available to you if you're on cloud-hosted. However, if you are self-hosted, you can install community nodes. I have spoken with Browserflow. They're already in contact with n8n to bring a native Browserflow node to n8n. So that by the time you're watching this, it may well be available in the cloud version of n8n. But just be aware, just to check on that first, if you are cloud-hosted, whether you could actually access the n8n Browserflow node. But what is this all about? Well, Browserflow lets us automate tasks in LinkedIn. We can do a search within LinkedIn of companies and people. We can send LinkedIn connection requests so we can connect with people. If they connect with us, we can scrape their profiles in order to learn more about them. We can send messages, and we can do all of that with automation, with n8n, bring in the power of AI, do some amazing things that LinkedIn allows us to do, that LinkedIn is super powerful with. And now we can do this with n8n. So let's dive in a little bit deeper here. And let's have a look at the pricing, because this does come with a price. Now, I've been playing with quite a few different LinkedIn automation tools, and they are all expensive. The cheapest one I've come across, where you have a standalone tool to automate the kind of tasks that Browserflow will now let us automate within n8n, they're costing on average from $60 per seat, in other words, per LinkedIn profile and upwards. So if we keep that in mind, this actually suddenly starts seeing affordable. But their basic plan is $19 a month. As I say, they are brand new. I've just started unpacking what they can do and what they can't do. I do believe a lot more features will be coming down the road very, very soon, but this is what they've got at the moment. What do you get for your $19? Well, you're going to get 8,000 credits. It seems, I don't know why they've chosen 8,000 credits. It's a large group of credits, but you can do quite a lot with that. You could, scrape 160 profiles. You can send 160 connection requests in the month, 260 messages. Now, I don't think you can add all these together. I think if you scraped all 160, it would use up all your credit. So it's a mix of these things that you can do, but this is going to enable us to do it. Now, something I want to mention right out the box as well, we've spoken about community nodes, but you need to have your eyes open here when you talk about automating LinkedIn. LinkedIn does not like you to use third-party automation tools. So you're almost in contravention of the LinkedIn T's and C's right from the word go if you're using a tool like this. So be aware. And if you're on the free level of LinkedIn, you have a free account, you're only allowed to send around about, no one's entirely sure, but around 15 to 20 connection invites per week. So if you're on the free version, you're going to max out at about 100 connections per week. So that's quite a long way short of what this free plan will give you, and how many connection requests you can send out before being throttled or potentially having your account suspended for using automation. All depends on how active and viable your account is. So yeah, it's a bit of an algorithm, a bit of a mix, but be aware before going into this that you can't just go bananas and invite thousands of people and scrape thousands of profiles. You will run into trouble with n8n. So that's what we've got going on here. So if we go back now just to the homepage, what we're going to do today, by the end of today's video, stick around. Today's video, we're going to go through 3 workflows that all work together. The first thing we're going to do is we are going to search LinkedIn from n8n using Browserflow, and we're going to get some search engine results. Some results from a LinkedIn search. We're going to write those results to a Google Sheet, and then we're going to go through that Google Sheet and determine which of that list, because not everyone in that list might be a good fit for you. From that list, we're going to select which ones we want to send out a connection connection request to, which ones do we want to create an invite with. We're going to do that in a Google Sheet. You could also do it equally well in an Airtable. We're going to do it in a Google Sheet today because this is for non-techies and we'll keep it slightly more simple. And then once we've sent a connection request, we're going to monitor to see if we're getting accepted connections. And if we do get an accepted connection, we're going to go and scrape the LinkedIn profile of that person who's accepted our connection request. And then we're going to use that profile in order to send an initial message to them. So we're going to find somebody, we're going to connect with that somebody, we're going to learn more about that somebody, and then we're going to send them a hyper-personalized and original initial message. So with all that being said, let's dive in and get started. To start using Browserflow, the first thing we need to do is install a community node, because at the time of this recording, Browserflow is not actually natively supported by n8n. However, by the time you watch this recording, it may well be a native n8n app, in which case you will not need to follow these steps, the community node steps. You can skip ahead to when we set up the credentials. But if you're going to create a community node or install a community node, we need to come down to settings. You're going to come through here to the community nodes. Now you can see I have it already set up, but this is what you're looking for. You can go to install and click into browse. This is now going to browse a repository of nodes, community nodes that you can install in your n8n. So we're just going to do a search here for Browserflow. And as we can see, there it is. We just need to copy this name now. Then you can X out of here, copy this name, click into here, install the package name, click I understand, and install. Now mine's already installed, so I'm going to skip ahead, but this will install the Browserflow community node on your n8n. Once it's installed, it will show here. You may need to refresh your browser in order for it to reflect. But if we head back over now into our workflow here and we pull into the tray and we search for Browserflow, it will show. Now, at the time of recording this video, it's brand new. Browserflow has just been released. That the community node is brand new and there is an error. I have been in contact with their support. They're aware of this, where the Browserflow icon is not showing. So we're seeing a broken image here, but it is still fully functional and it does work. So the next step we need to go through here now is to get a credential. So we're going to go and create a new credential for this, and we need an API key. So in order to get an API key, we need to head over to Browserflow itself. So let's do that. Here I'm at Browserflow, browserflow.io/n8n. They've got nodes for both Make and n8n. We're going to get started here. Now, it's jumped right to last steps for me because I have set this up before and then deleted my credentials and come back. You may have a few steps before you get into this where it asks you a couple of questions regarding your how you discovered Browserflow, size of your business, and you'll be asked to load up a credit card as well. It does give you a 7-day free trial. As long as you cancel before the 7 days are up, it won't be a problem, but you will need to load your credit card, just fair warning. Then at this step here, we now need to connect our LinkedIn. So what you do here is connect this LinkedIn, click the Connect LinkedIn button. It's going to load a little browser window within your browser window. And you're going to be asked to log in. Now, Browserflow is not actually saving your login credentials at all. All they're doing is actually saving the cookies that come with your login, and then they're going to use those cookies to generate an API key. So when you get to this, you'll need to put in your email and your password for your LinkedIn and sign in. Once you've signed in successfully, you'll click connect LinkedIn, and if everything went according to plan and your details are correct, this will now show you as logged into LinkedIn. I'm now signed into LinkedIn. I can connect LinkedIn. So step 1 and step 2 are successful. As I've loaded this before, it's not showing me the screen you will see for the first time, but on this section here, it will have a link, much like it has this link here for join our Discord channel. It's going to have a link to generate an API key. You can click onto that link. It will generate an API key. I want you to copy that API key, return then to your n8n, and fill in this API key and pop it in there, hit save. I've done this before, so if we click into my credential that is created already and we edit it, we will see something like this. Rename your API key to something you can recognize, and this will give you full functionality within Browserflow and n8n. I've created three workflows, three automations that we're going to use to automate LinkedIn. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to search LinkedIn to get people we potentially want to connect with. Then we're going to send LinkedIn connections using Browserflow and n8n. And then finally, we're going to check if those connection requests have been accepted, and then send an initial message after the connection is made to start that relationship to see if there's something there. So let's start with the very first one. Search LinkedIn using Browserflow. So I've pre-built this workflow here, and I just want to mention once again that the reason we're not seeing the Browserflow icon here is because this is a very early release of the Browserflow community node, and there is a fault with it, but it is fully functional, so that explains why we're not seeing something here. But if you have now installed your community node, you'll be able to come into here, type in Browserflow, and you'll find your list of tools here. And the first thing we're actually doing is we want to search LinkedIn. And here it is, scrape profiles from a LinkedIn search. So that's what we've got on the canvas already. It's this particular node right here. So let's start with this node, and then we'll build out from here. Ultimately, what we want to be doing is scraping LinkedIn and then getting that data into a Google Sheet that's going to act as our database to manage our connection requests, who's connected, who hasn't, who have we sent message to, etc., etc. So let's click into this Browserflow node here. You want to start by connecting up your credential, which you should know how to do by now. Your resource is going to be LinkedIn. The operation here, we have many to choose from, but we're scraping profiles from a LinkedIn search. And here are the search terms available to us. We have a category. Now, I've put expressions in here, but the category here that Browserflow is speaking of is persons or companies. I'm going to show you that in a moment, but this is the category. You've got two options. Are we going to search by persons or companies? You can see it there on the tooltip hover. Then we need a search term. It's exactly the same as if you were using the search feature of LinkedIn. For example, here I've typed in digital marketer into my LinkedIn, and I've got a set of results, 785,000 results. It's an awful lot of people. So that's a search that can be done. So that would be the search term. The start page. Now, if you do a search in LinkedIn, if we come back to my LinkedIn, we can see we have a page here. Here's page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and so on. So our start page will be which page do you want to return the results from. So if I put 1 in here, it's going to pull in the first page of results, page 1. But if I put in page 3 or page 4 or page 8, for example, into my n8n, it would would return the results from page 8, and it would skip all the results from page 1 to 7, for example. Then we want to determine the number of pages that we're going to return. That is effectively the number of results. In my testing, it appears as though Browserflow returns five profiles with every search. So if you wanted 10 pages, you're going to get 50 results, 50 searches. Now, there is a cost to searching, so this would be a way that you would control your costs. We'll look at this in a moment. Then we have city. These are optional. You could put in the city of where you want to search, and country as well. These are both optional. Now, I've got them written out as expressions here because what I've done is I've created an n8n form to trigger this workflow, and I've mapped the n8n form to this Browserflow node. You could actually type in here all the information you wanted and do a test here, and if your credentials are filled out correctly, you'll get results. But we're going a step further. We want to have a friendly intake form, so I am using an n8n form. And this is the details I've given it. Now, I know that each search costs 10 credits per page, and each page turns about 5 results. So just some hint as to the costs. It's very, very minor, but there are some costs here. So there's the search term. Here's the category, and I've made that a drop-down list, and I've itemized that out to persons and companies. I have the field name city, the field name country, and number of pages as well as start pages. So I have all of that already configured. Let's go and get some dummy data in here so we've got something to work with. So I'm going to test this. This should open up my form. Here it is. So let's do that same search you saw me doing in LinkedIn Digital Marketer. I'm going to look for persons. Let's limit this to the city of Cape Town. Let's limit this to South Africa. Let's just bring back one page for now, and let's just start at page 1. But this would be a place that you could manipulate how many results you want. I'm going to keep it simple. We're going to submit that. And because we're in test mode in our n8n, here we have some data. I'm just going to pin that. And here is our output of our form. And if I click now into my node here for Browserflow, you can see it's pulled everything in: persons, digital marketer, etc., etc. Let's push the test button and see what results we get. Now, one thing I will note is Browserflow is quite slow. Hopefully we'll see an increase in speed, but it can take some time to get results. But here are the results that we've got here. We've got a single item coming back. Within that item, we have these data points. There's a data point there. So we have Shakila Ali, Robin Cox, Nora Wilkie, and we've got some information about them. Not a huge amount of information. It's kind of a mini set of results here, but we can see this looks like the right person. There's a digital marketer. Here's a social media digital marketer. Here's a digital marketer. So it looks like we've got the results that we want. But interestingly, they've come down as one item, which is going to be a little bit tricky to work with. We probably want to split this out into individual items. It'll just make it easier to work with that data. So to do that, we're going to need a split out node. It's one of our core nodes here. It's called split out. There it is. And we just want to split out the name of the field we want to split out. Remember, in n8n, we get data in on the left and data out on the right. So we want to split out this data field. So that's what I've written in here: data field, no other fields. And it's just going to split this data section and that data, data 0, data 1, and so forth into its own item, and just going to make it easier to work with. So let's go ahead and do that. There we are. We have 10 items, 10 results have come back. And if I click into JSON mode, we'll be able to see them now as 10 distinct items: Shakila, Robin, Nora. There we go. There we go. So it does look like in my early testing, we were getting 5 results per page. This one, it seems like we got 10 results per page. So might be a little tricky to know exactly how many results per page we're getting, and therefore to manage costs. But I'm sure Browserflow will tighten this up, or more information will come to light as this goes on. So we've actually done our search. This part of the workflow is almost complete, but we have one final step to do. Is we need to write this to a Google Sheet. So what we're going to need here is a Google Sheet node. We're going to go into Google Sheets, and what we want to write into here is append row in sheet, or we can use append or update. Either one of those will work. Drag one of those on. That's what I've got here. And in this case, I'm using append row. In other words, create a new row. So you're going to need to go and set up your credential. If you're not sure how to set up your credential, no problem. You can go into create new credential, and their documentation right here, this documentation that you can see right here. There we go. I have this new feature where I can draw arrows on my screen. I'm just getting used to it. I'm going to try and use it in this video. I'm going to be a little bit clumsy with it, but bear with me as I get used to using it. But I think this should delete it. But there is the open docs that you can use. They'll walk you through the documentation. If not, check out our video on how to configure Google Sheets. You'll need a client ID and a client secret, and then it will be connected. I have connected this already, so I'm going to close this out. But before we go any further, we actually need to go and create a Google Sheet to receive this information. Now, I've created one Google Sheet that's going to receive all the information that we collect via Browserflow through the course of these 3 workflows. So to save you the pain of having to figure that all out, I have already created the Google Sheet for us. I will show it to you in a second. And let's see, where did I have it hiding? Here we go. Here is the Google Sheet. It's called LinkedIn Outreach, and just one single sheet. And we've got lots of column names here. By the way, if you want these workflows, if you want this Google Sheet, and you don't want to rebuild it step by step with me right now, no problem. What you can do is jump into our community. We have a fantastic community called Let's Automate It. Details are in the description of this video below. For about $27 a month, you get in here, and what you're going to find in here is a vibrant community of people discussing all things automation and AI. We have a dedicated support channel where we help you with your automations if you're struggling, not sure, where you can help you get started. We have we have experts in here. We have beginners in here. This is the place to come and learn, especially if you're a non-techie. We have a full learning component within here. And if you come through into n8n automations and you open this course, we're calling it courses, but it's actually a repository. You're going to find every single one of our YouTube videos complete with everything you could possibly need. We've got, for example, if you click into this one, scraping Google Maps, you'll recognize the YouTube video if you've seen this before, as well as everything about this, the link to the video, the JSON that you can just copy this JSON file, dump it into your n8n canvas. It will work immediately. You'll just need to hook up your credentials. We have all the tools that you need, direct links to that. We give you a summary of every single workflow that's done, the details of the workflow, who's it for, what problem is it solving, what does it do, how to set up, how to customize the workflow. We do the same for every single YouTube video that we have, plus more. We have a lot more automations in here than we have published on our YouTube video. So if you want to get this particular LinkedIn workflows, all the workflows and the Google Doc and the instructions on how to use it, you'll find it in here, as well as support on how to get set up and running with AI and automations in n8n and other tools, etc., etc. Enough about that. Let's get back to our Google Doc. So here it is. It's all set up. LinkedIn URL, connect, name. These will become a lot more apparent what these do when we get started, but we're going to want to set this up first. Let me just scroll through this slowly, and you can pause the video. So if you want to recreate this, because this is as simple as it gets, it is literally just a single Google Sheet with these names of these columns. That's it. There's nothing else. There's nothing more complex than this in that Google Sheet. So if you don't want to join the community and download this, you don't need to. There it is. So now that it's created and it's called LinkedIn Outreach, I can come back to my n8n. And I can now look for that sheet. So I'm going to look for a resource, is sheet within a document. I'm appending a row. I'm going to, from the list, look for LinkedIn Outreach. I'm looking for the sheet, and I'm going to map each column manually, and I'm pulling in what information I get currently. So what do I get at the moment? I'm getting LinkedIn URL. we're not using image URL. I'm getting a tagline, so I'm dragging that in, location and summary, and you can see their location, tagline and summary. I've written all those in, and then what I've also written in here is I have connection request sent, and I'm hard coding in here, no for each of these. No, I haven't sent a connection request yet. No, we are not connected. No, I haven't messaged them, because this is going to be information we're going to use with the next workflows to determine if we've reached out to someone yet, and if they've replied, and if we've mentioned them. So we're starting from the negative, the no. So those are all pre-filled out. Let's test step and see this run. This should now be writing all 10 names into my document. What have we got here? Columns names are updated. Okay, so I've done an update. So I'm just quickly going to refresh these column names here. This was saying that I've done a refresh. Yep, I just reorganized some things. So let's try that again. It's busy writing to my Google Sheet. You could write this to an Airtable. Airtable would be a lot more effective, but we're keeping this simple for non-techies. There's the information. Let's go have a look at our Airtable, our Google Sheet, and there it is. We've got our URLs. There's the name of each person. We haven't sent a connection request. They are not yet connected with us. Well, they may be, but at this point in the flow, we don't know that yet, so we're defaulting to no. Have we messaged them yet? No, we haven't. We'll be doing these with later workflows. And here's the information that I have so far. They're all based in Cape Town. I have a second location in there. Wonder if I've duplicated something. We have a tagline, which lets us identify a little bit about them, as well as a summary. So that is workflow number 1 done. Simple as that. We are now able to search LinkedIn using Browserflow and write that to a database. In this case, that's Google Sheets. Let's dive into the next workflow where we actually start sending out some connection requests. Next step is to send connection requests, LinkedIn connection requests using Browserflow. That's this workflow over here. Send LinkedIn connection using Browserflow. So let's jump into it and have a look at what's going on here. There is a fair amount of points or relative complexity to understand in this workflow, but not to worry, I'm going to go through it with you one by one. And remember, you can go and grab this directly from our community if you want to. We have this first section at the top here. This particular section, I'm going to zoom in on it a little bit, is all about checking to see if we are not already connected with something. So with the person. So let me talk to you what's going on. So we have a Google Sheets trigger here. If you want to go and grab a Sheets trigger, we are going to grab one here, and we are going to look into the triggers, and we're going to go on row updated. That's what we're after. We're pulling in your Google Sheet. We're going to check our Google Sheet every day at 9 o'clock. You can set this to be whatever you would like it to be. We're going to look at our LinkedIn outreach. We're going to look at sheet 1, and we're looking at to see if a row is updated, and we're looking on columns to watch being connect. Let me explain what's going on here. This is a Google Sheet this is a node at least, that's going to look at a Google Sheet, and the moment the Google Sheet is updated, well, not the moment, once a day it's going to check if there's been an update in the last 24 hours between 9 o'clock on one day and 9 o'clock the next day, and it's only going to look at a column called connect and to see if there has been an improvement, if anything has changed. So let's jump over to our Google Sheet here and see what's going on. Here is this connect column that we've just been talking about. This is the connect column. And the idea here, the way this has been created, is we want to look at these connections that have come through, these 10 connections, and not all of them might be people we want to reach out to. Sometimes the LinkedIn search returns contacts or profiles that are not suitable for what we're trying to achieve. So this gives us the opportunity to browse through the information we have on this sheet and determine who we actually want to connect with. You could skip this step and make it automatic, but I believe that LinkedIn outreach is not quantity, it's quality. We are heavily limited by the LinkedIn automation allowable limits of only maximum of 20, let's call it 15 or 16 connection requests a week. So we better make them count. So here I have a senior digital marketer at Bash. That looks like a good person to join with. So I'm going to put a yes, a lowercase y in here. This is how I've just designed it. If it has a y in it, it will run the next step. You could make this anything you want. So you could have a yes in here. You could mark it an X. I'll show you how to manipulate that in the spreadsheet in a moment. But we want to connect here with Shakila. Let's have a look at a few others here. We have a junior digital marketer. No, we have a brand manager, experienced digital marketer, social media. Okay, that looks like someone I want to connect with. So we'll make that a yes as well. That's Chantel. And let's see who else we've got here. And I'm just looking at the tagline summary here. Here we've got someone. This one looks like a pretty powerful person as well. It's in row 9, and that's Bule Kota. So I will put a yes in here as well. And I see our yes didn't apply for one of them. This was who did we look at here? Yeah, this row here, which I believe is row 5. Yeah. So now out of my 10, I have marked 3 as being people I want to connect with. So as I say, this is a manual step, but I think it's worthwhile having this manual step in here to see to make sure we're reaching out to people who we want to. So let's just run this now and get our results. Here we have our results. We've got our 10 items coming back. And as you can see, we've got yeses in these 3 columns. These are the people we want to reach out to. So the first thing we want to do is check if I just want to filter out those we want to connect with. We've got 10 people in our list. We had 10 search results, but only 3 we want to connect with. So here we're looking at that row, connect, this one here. I'm using an if node, and is it equal to Y? This is where you could change it to an X or anything else you wanted. And is are we connected to them already? I'm coming back to here, and here we have the option of, are we connected to them already? Now, in this case, we've marked them all as no, we're not connected with them at the moment. The later in the flow, we do a check, well, this will make sense. But to start with, we start with a default position of no, we're not connected with everyone. So we want to send a connection request to everyone we want to connect with, who we have not yet connected with. This is what's happening. Who we want to connect with, who we have not yet connected with. This is what this search is doing. Everyone that we want to connect with, who we have not connected with yet. So let's run that. And it should just return the 3. There we go. There are our 3 people we want to connect with. So now we are going to use our Browserflow node here. Here it is again. Reminder that unfortunately their icon has broken, but the functionality is still there. So we're going to go into here and we're going to go pull out our Browserflow community node. And we want to check if we're already connected. So here we want to use this version of the node. Check if a person is a connection. That's what's on the canvas already. So I'll leave it there. Now, what happens here, the way Browserflow is structured, is it works best if it checks each person one by one. It has the ability, and n8n will run if we did not have this loop node in here. If we ran directly out of this true branch and we connected it directly to this, it would run. However, in my testing, I've noticed that Browserflow can only really handle 2 contacts at a time, 2 checks at a time, otherwise it causes problems. So if you had asked to connect with more than 3 in here, or more than 2, let's say all 10 we wanted to connect with, there would be 10 checks for connections that would be running pretty much simultaneously, and in my experience, Browserflow has issues with that. So in that case, I have put in a loop node, so it's going to check one person at a time. Check person number 1, am I connected with them already or not? Yes or no? Then when it's done that check, it'll check with number 2 and number 3, and if you've got more than 3 people you want to connect with, it'll keep going. This is a relatively slow process, but it means that you don't get an error in your workflow. So I'm going to go and run this. Let me just show you a loop node if you haven't seen it for the first time. Let me show you how we can set up a loop node. So I'm just going to grab a loop node here, and I'm going to bring it onto the canvas. And let me just drag this one out a little bit. It has joined itself up, so I'll just disconnect it. And it has... So this is kind of what it looks like when you bring it onto the workflow for the first time. And what we want to do is remove this node that says replace me, okay, and send this bottom one into the repeating loop as we want to go. So here is our loop node. So it's the first item is going to come in, and it's going to be sent here, so where it's going to check if we're connected. That's what we're replacing that one with. It's going to check if it's connected. Once it's connected, it's going to go through again a second time. We're only checking one person at a time. That's what this 1 means in batch size. Check for one item at a time. It'll check the second item, and it'll go through here. It'll loop back again, go through for the third item. And because there's no more items coming in, it's only 3 items. Once it's done all 3, it's complete. It goes out of the done branch and will continue down our workflow. That is how, simply put, the loop node works. So if I run this one here now, this if connected node, it's going to run this for us. I might watch it, but perhaps I'll skip forward because this does take a little bit of time for this to run. If you're bringing in a lot of people, expect this to take some time to run as well. Potentially, you might have n8n timeout issues if you had 30, 40, 50 coming in here. This might be something we need to look at working with Browserflow to improve in the future, but it works very, 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 very well for smaller numbers. Let's see how that goes. So I'm now running it. As we can see, it's checking the first item, and this will take a moment to be done. I'm going to let this run out, and I'll probably jump ahead in the video. As we can see, it's done. It's checked all 3 of these connections, and the results have come down the if node. Now let's have an if node. Let's have a look at what this if node is doing. What this if node is here for is it wants to check if we've already connected with someone. So let me start from the top again very quickly. We have pulled set of search results out of LinkedIn. We've chosen who we want to connect with, and then we've checked if we're already connected with those people. Because the bottom section of the flow here, this down here, sends a connection request. But if we're already connected with somebody, there's no point in doing that, and that's exactly what we've just checked right now. And if we go look at this if node, we're checking to see if the output is connection, is it true? And in this case, you can see the answer here is false for the first item. How have I set this up? It's what we call a Boolean. So we've come down to Boolean here, and I've selected is true. That's what we have here. And as we can see, I'm not connected with any one of these three people. If I was connected with someone, there'd be a person coming down the true branch. And if it came out of the true branch, we would update the connection status in the Google Sheet. And we would update that connection status to say, I am connected. So if we go back to our Google Sheet, where it says here, we are not connected, the first time I run this, if someone was a pre-existing connection, this would be updated to say yes next to the person with whom we already connected. I hope that's making sense. In this particular example, this won't happen because I'm connected with no one, so it's going to come down here to this wait step. Now, why is there a wait step here? I've added this in. I made it 10 seconds. It's probably longer than it needs to be, but just long enough to give this Google Sheet time to update. APIs can be pretty fast, but sometimes there's a lag. So we just want to give it time to update, because what we'll be doing in the next portion of this flow is sending connection requests. And again, we want to make sure, just to double check, that we're not trying to send connection requests to people we're already connected with, because that would create an error. So I hope that's making sense so far. Let me run this check now. It's going to take, just wait 10 seconds. That's all it's done. And it's actually pulled someone through. Actually pulled all three contacts through. Actually, I see I've made it 1 second just for the sake of this video. So it went through very, very quickly. And now we're into this second part of this flow. And this part is simple, but there's some concepts here we need to grasp. So this is a section you want to pay attention to. And the real reason we want to pay attention to it here is LinkedIn, as I've already mentioned, does not like, strongly discourages third-party automation tools from automating things inside of LinkedIn. It's exactly what we're doing here. So we need to be very, very careful to stay within the limits of what LinkedIn allows us to do. And this is the section of the flow that's going to do that. So what's happening here? We're using a loop node again, so that we're managing just one profile at a time. The first thing we're doing is we're sending a connection request using a Browserflow. Once again, remember, unfortunately, this icon is broken, so it does not look particularly impressive. But if I go to Browserflow and LinkedIn, we want to send a LinkedIn connection invite. That is what this particular node is doing. So it's coming in here and it's sending a LinkedIn connection invite. And what does it need here? It needs the LinkedIn URL. So we need to map back from here. We need to map back to the Google Sheets trigger. The Google Sheets trigger, which returned here the LinkedIn URL. This is how Browserflow and n8n knows which person to send a connection request via its LinkedIn URL. So that's what we've done. In fact, we've done the same here as well. I didn't mention it. We're checking if a person is a connection by looking at their LinkedIn URL. And in this case, I'm just able to pull it in directly from the loop node that's coming through. And that's going to pull through in this case. So I will run this in one go. I can't run it one by one because of this loop node. But if we can see here, we are referencing the Google Sheets trigger and we're referencing the LinkedIn URL. That's what we've done. And we would be able to just drag that in, but you can also copy this structure exactly like it is, this expression, and it will pull in the URL, the LinkedIn URL of the person we want to connect with. So it's going to send a connection request. Once it sends a connection request, the next step we want to do is, if we go back over to our workflow here, is we want to update this column. We want to say we have sent a connection request. So we're going to update this to say yes. So once it's sent, it'll say yes. That's what this node will do. These next two nodes now are important. Here is where we set our weekly limit. Now, if you're on a free account, and I believe even the lower level premium accounts of LinkedIn, you're limited to to 20 connection requests a week. So I've put in a step here where you can actually hard code how many connection requests you would like to send every week. I like to stick with 16. I want to say comfortably within the limits of, I don't want to get too close to that 20. And in fact, if you're not very active on LinkedIn and you're just starting out, I would keep this at 2s or 3s for a while. So it effectively warms up the your LinkedIn profile. Just, don't go from being a dormant LinkedIn profile to suddenly sending out connection requests. Can be a bit of a red flag. So I've set this at 16. I'm sending a maximum of 16 per week. Now I've got a wait node in here. And here something interesting is happening. So the wait node is going to resume after a time interval. It's the selection we've got here. And here I have put in an expression that essentially is working out how many minutes are in a week, 7 days a week, 24 hours in a day, 60 minutes in an hour. It's working that out. And then it's dividing it by the number of connections we want to send in a week. The result of this is it will send one connection request. Each loop here, each run of this loop will send one connection request. And if you want to do send 16 connection requests, I believe that works out to about sending a connection request every 10.5 hours, every 10 and a half hours. Over 7 days, if you're sending a connection request every 10 and a half hours, it will work out to being 16. That's what's happening here. All you need to do if you're running this workflow is set this number here. And as I say, if you're on a Sales Navigator, one of the high packages, I think you can push this up a lot higher. But start cautiously. This is where you can run into trouble and potentially have your LinkedIn account suspended temporarily, even banned if you're a repeat offender. So just control that number quite carefully and do a Google search. Check out LinkedIn's limits. Make yourself familiar with what's possible there before you go ahead. You use this at your own risk. All right, so now once we've done that and it's sent our connection request, now we want to update the Google Sheet once again to say that we have sent the connection and to get the next batch. So we've sent one connection request. Next time we run this loop, we want to get the next one. And then the third time, we'll get the final one because we've only asked for 3 connection requests in this example. So let's open up this Google Sheet node. What are we doing here? We're getting rows. We're going to use the filter option here. Here's the button filter. I've clicked onto that. It's expanded this out. And I'm looking at the connection request column. I want to get the next person. So if I've sent it to somebody and that connection request says yes, I don't want to send it to again. So I'm looking for the next person in this list who I want to connect with and has connection request sent equal no. Who do I want to connect with and who have I not connected with yet? That's what this filter is doing. I'm putting the two together and I'm combining the filters with an AND function, not an OR function, an AND function. Both of these conditions have to be true. If it does that, it's going to pull down the remaining people in my spreadsheet that I haven't been sent through. It's going to loop back in here using the same loop node that we looked at earlier, and it'll send the next one following exactly the same limit. It'll go around again and send the next one, and so on until it is done. Now, if we're only sending a connection request every 10 and a half hours, of course, this will take an entire week to run out. We'll speed it up now for the sake of this demo, but I'm going to keep running through this now just to explain it in one go, because once we've sent all 3 of our connection requests, remember that the 3 connection requests are coming from the spreadsheet because these are the 3 people I want to connect with. It's then going to come out of this done loop. It's done sending all the connection requests. And I've set up a simple Gmail notification here. You could put a Telegram node. You could put in a Slack notification. And all I'm doing here is sending myself an email. I haven't actually put my email address in here. And I'm sending myself a simple message going, "Hi, your most recent LinkedIn outreach campaign has completed. Maybe it's time to set up a new one," or words to that effect. So how do you spell Q? Is that correct? There we go. So it's just a notification that I'm giving myself afterwards. I've explained this throttling loop here in this, so you can understand it yourself. This restricts how many connection requests are sent to stay within the limits. The throttling can be adjusted by adjusting the set weekly limit node, okay? And then I'm running through the maths here. So if you're not quite following, jump into our community, go and grab this workflow and read through this. Hopefully it will make sense, especially in conjunction with this video and my explanation. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to run this workflow completely from top to bottom, and I am going to send connection requests. This is real live connection requests to those 3 people using this workflow, and we'll see how it runs and we'll see how it updates on the spreadsheet. So I am going to actually just going to pin this node so I don't have to run that one again, because I've got that data. I've already checked if they connected with me, but I'm going to kill the rest. I'm going to hit test workflow. It's telling me I've got an issue. Oh, what's happening here is because my Gmail node is not being configured. So I'm just going to deactivate the Gmail node so it won't send me the Gmail at the end. That's just because I hadn't put a destination email address to notify somebody. So with that being done, let's try that again. We're going to test this workflow. There it is. It's checking the spreadsheet. It's bringing down everybody. It is now sending a connection request to one person. Browserflow, it's probably my one comment so far with Browserflow, other than this broken icon, is it seems to be quite slow. It doesn't perform very quickly. I'm sure it's being limited by LinkedIn's API speed and perhaps some proxy servers and such like, in order to not to trigger some some LinkedIn automation kind of checks to see if it's running. So there we go. It's sent one. It's updating the spreadsheet. It's now going to wait. And in fact, I think it's going to wait all this time. So I am just going to stop this one, and let's readjust this down into seconds. I should have done this before. And let's just take this weekly limit up to maybe 1,000. Why am I doing this? This is just going to bring this interval down for the sake of this video. So let me do that once more. Let me zoom in a little bit so we can see this run, and I think that's got most things on the screen. So let's go and run this now. I might speed this up a little bit in the interest of this video. So if you see things jumping ahead, it's just because there's a long pause with some of the nodes running, and I don't want to make you sit here and watch nodes spinning. But here we are, busy checking all our people that we've requested to connect with. Are we already connected with them? Because if we are, we don't want to, or we're unable to send a second connection request. LinkedIn only lets you invite someone once. Of course, you can withdraw an invite in the LinkedIn interface itself, and then you have to wait 3 weeks and you are able to send a second invite. But in this case, we're just checking to see if we're invited. We've checked one person already and we're not connected with them, and now it is going to check the remainders. Right, well, it's connected. Checked if we were connected already or not. We weren't, so it came through, and now it's running the flow. So here what's happening is it is sending our very first connection request to the first person that we earmarked in our spreadsheet that we wanted to connect with. So it's sending that connection request. Then it'll update the spreadsheet to say that it has sent the request, and then it's going to go into the delay so that we do not hit our limits with LinkedIn. I've sped this up for the sake of this exercise. This will just take a couple of seconds, and there it is, busy running. And as we can see, it's running a second time now. I had a second wait. So it is sending it to the second person in our list of 3 that we want to connect with. And again, that browser flow is a little bit slow, but here it is running. And then once again, it'll update the spreadsheet, wait the allotted time so that we don't break our limits, and then get the next person from our spreadsheet, and then repeat the process until all 3 are done. There we have 2 people done. It's now busy sending the third connection request. Third connection request is done. It is now pulling from the spreadsheet once again after our little time delay. And this should come out of the done branch now. As we can see, it is done. We have now successfully sent 3 connection requests. We've updated the spreadsheet. Let's go have a look at our spreadsheet, and we can see here, yes, we've sent a connection request. Yes, we've sent a connection request. Yes, we've sent a connection request. So that is done. The final part of this flow now is to wait until people accept our connection requests and then to be in touch with them. So This is the second part. It is done. We have sent connection requests. We have stayed within our limits. Let's now find out how we can actually start a conversation with someone who has connected with us. For that, let's head over back to the main overview. So the remaining flow we need to look at here is to check for new LinkedIn connections and send a message via Browserflow. Let's think about this. If you were at a network meeting, a face-to-face with humans, meetings, you might scan the attendee list before you got there, or you might be looking at tables at a networking event. Somehow you would be searching your network event to find people that you would like to connect with. That's what would be happening in real life. In LinkedIn, it needs to be the same. We're searching for LinkedIn profiles. Once we find people we would like to connect with, we need to walk over and kind of try and get their attention, shake their hand, and say hello. That's sending a connection request. Maybe it's asking someone to introduce you, someone who's a shared contact or what the case may be in a real world environment. In a LinkedIn environment, that's about sending a LinkedIn connection request. It's a handshake to say, hey, can we have a conversation? If that person kind of shakes your hand and seems to be welcoming you, then we go into the next phase of checking for a new LinkedIn connection and starting a conversation. And that's exactly what you would do in real life as well. So let's do exactly that. Let's dive into this workflow here. And this workflow is going to check for LinkedIn connections and send a message via Browserflow. Let's run through it. Let's see how you do it. So the first node we're using here as our trigger node is a timer. You can just type in timer here. It's going to schedule trigger. There it is. Sorry, schedule trigger. Pull that on and configure it to how often you would like to check. Now, for me, I check every single day. So every single day at 10 o'clock, I check. Now, every time you do a check, though, and you run a Browserflow node, it is going to cost you a few credits. So the more often you check, the more it's going to cost you in Browserflow credits. So just set your interval to what makes sense for your budget and for the rate of connection requests that come in your experience. So to start with, we're going to run this once a day, and then we're going to use a Google Sheets node. And we're going to get rows. This is the Google Sheet we're going to use. We're going to get nodes. We are looking at exactly the same Google Sheet as we've been using up to now. And we're going to do the filter option again, add filter. This won't be showing for the first time. You're going to go add filter, use the combine sequence. So both of these conditions need to be true. And we want to check that. Just check those contacts that we have sent a connection request to. So this must be true. If we look at our spreadsheet, we want connection request sent. Yes, 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 yes. No point checking for the no's because we know there's no answer there because we haven't sent a connection request. So yes, and the column connected must be no. Because if we connected with someone, we know we connected. There's no point checking again to see if we've connected. That was actually done by the previous workflow. So both those criteria have to be true. If they're true, we're going to check if they have connected with us. So let's go and run it up to this point here. So I'm just going to run this node. It's going to pull these three in. And I very much doubt we would have a new connection because we have only just sent out connection requests, and unless someone's got auto acceptance on, and they probably would not have accepted it yet. But I will modify this to show you what happens when we do get a live a connection request coming in. This does take a little bit of time to check these connections. We were doing this in the previous flow as well. So you just need to be a little bit patient with Browserflow. But the great thing about automations is they run when you are not paying attention. So the fact that they take a little bit longer, certainly in this circumstance, does not matter. All right, there we have it. We have checked if the connections have been accepted. We're using an if node now to, again, same as we did before, check if the connection request is true. So let's test this step and see what we've got here. So we have four false branches. This means that we have nobody has connected with us yet, which means we'll go down the false branch and this particular workflow will stop. It won't run again until this triggers here. Tomorrow at the same time, it'll check again. And it'll keep doing this over and over and over until you do get someone accepting you as a connection request, and then we'll roll into the second half of that. But let me show you what's going to happen if you actually do have a live connection coming back in. Let's run this workflow now. I've modified the spreadsheet and put in the LinkedIn URL of someone who's actually a connection with me at the moment, just to show you what happens if we do actually have someone who has already connected with us. So let me show you what I've done here. I've added in this person, Shannon. I've marked them at yes, I do want to connect with them. I've marked that yes, I have sent a connection request. They're not yet connected with us. In fact, they are, but I'm just running this as if they were not, to make sure that this falls in line with what we've been talking about up to this point. So that's marked as no, and I would have mapped the information through to them that I've got up to this point. So with all that in place, let's go back and run this again. So we are going to, let's just run this up to this point here once again. So we're getting the requests. There's 5 items. We're checking if the connection is accepted or not. So we've got 4 people. Actually, we've got 5 people now that we have said we want want to check if we have connected with them yet or not. So it's checking those steps. Check if connection is accepted. Now, we could use the loop node here. I haven't used the loop node in this example. In the previous example, when we were checking conditions, we did have a loop node that was setting in on this particular point because I was getting occasional errors. I've left this without the loop node on purpose so that we can see how this performs if we're just sending 5 items into it. And it seems to have performed well. If you're having issues with here, put a loop item into here and loop through them one by one so that you don't have any issues. But we've had success here. And if we look into our node, we can see we have 1 person who has connected with us and 5 who have not. So now this flow will continue because we have 1 person that's coming in. Now, I've added a wait step here of 73 minutes. This is an arbitrary time. If you think about this, we want to mimic human behavior. We're on LinkedIn. We want to be as human as we possibly can. So if someone accepts your connection request with you, yes, we are already checking that once a day fairly randomly already, but I don't want to reply to that person immediately. So if the situation arised where they had just connected with us and within seconds they get a message coming back, it just smacks of automation. So I like to put a little delay into here, and I'm just putting 73 minutes because it's an arbitrary period of time. It's not on the hour. It's just a little bit random. So that's what I've put in here. But I'm going to drop this out. I'm just going to make this 1 second to start with because I don't want to wait 73 minutes in this video. So I'm going to run this node now. For 1 second, I'm just pulling information through. So we've waited for 1 second. It's passed it through. Now we're using, again, another Browserflow node, and we're using the scrape get data from a LinkedIn profile. Here are all the options. We're using get data from a LinkedIn profile, and we are pulling in, again, just the LinkedIn URL. That is all that is needed. And if we go back, we can go back to the get pending connection requests. Get pending connection request. There's the LinkedIn URL. I'm just dragged it in. Simple as that. That's all you need to do. And I've pinned this data from an earlier execution, so I don't need to run it again. But what's happened is it's gone in here and scraped Shannon. Shannon is who I have disconnected with, and it's scraped all kinds of information, additional information that we didn't get the first time around, and we've got all kinds of information coming in here. I'm looking at this in table format. If we look at it in schema format, we can see all the information that's coming in here. Very useful. So let's make sure we can use that information to our best advantage. So grab a set node or an edit fields node. They both use the same name. And what we're going to do here is just map this in. So just work through this and capture the information you're after. First name and last name. What I've done here is actually, I'll just open this up a little bit. I've put a little splitter in here so that I can split the first name, the name into first name and last name. So I have first name as Shannon, last name as McCrill. You don't necessarily need to do that. I've just gone to that step because if I ever map this into a CRM of mine, I like to separate those out. But you can just have name if you choose. Otherwise, just pause the video, copy this expression. It'll get the job done for you. Or do as I did and go and ask AI for help to write this expression for you. First name, last name, about. I'm getting an email address. We won't always get an email address, but with this particular person, we did get an email address. I think here it is at the bottom, email address, and so on and so forth, all the way through. Map whatever information you feel you might want to refer to later and save it here in this set node. Now, we can also use this information now to create a hyper-personalized outreach message. And so what I've done is I'm using an AI agent node, and I'm using the AI agent node there. I've connected that up to a OpenAI chat model. I'm just using ChatGPT for Mini here. And then I have gone into here and I've given this a system prompt. You're an expert at creating highly personalized LinkedIn messages, etc., etc., etc. I'll just go through this slowly so you can read it, pause the video, and have a look. I'm not going to go through this. I did not spend a lot of time getting this prompt spot on, and I'm going to talk about if we should even be using an AI. But I have set up a system message, and then here's the prompt. Please create a very short message for, and I've pulled in the information from our set node. In fact, let me run that set node now. All right. So now we can see this information coming in here, and I'm pulling in first name, last name. Here's what we know about Shannon, and I've just pulled in the about information. So I'm giving it not an awful lot of information. You could feed it a lot more information and ask it to write a short message, and it's written a short message here. As I said, I pinned this from earlier. Hi, Shannon. I'm impressed by your entrepreneurial journey and the impact you've made in the home services sector as an AI and automation specialist, blah, blah, blah. Now, I do want to pause here for a moment to say, I'm not entirely sure AI is the right tool for the job here, because this smacks of an AI response, because everybody now is feeding information into an AI to hyper-personalize things. And it's starting to be very recognizable in my opinion. Now, I'm sure we could tweak these prompts to make this super unique, and I encourage you to do so. But I actually think if we are reaching out to the people we have chosen to reach out to, in other words, we've been very, very deliberate about who we're reaching out to, we know they've got the pain that we can solve for them if this is a potential sales call. We know a lot about them because we're drilling into a particular niche, and maybe an AI is not the right way to go here. Rather, maybe skip this, come directly into our next Browserflow node. That's this one here where we send a message. So we're sending a LinkedIn message, and here we can actually type in the message, type in something authentic. Maybe you can merge in the person's name, but even then you are using the LinkedIn Messenger. So addressing someone by their first name in a LinkedIn message doesn't make sense because it's going directly to them. It's kind of like sending someone a WhatsApp and going, "Hi, Robin." Yeah, it can be done. But often you just go, straight into your message. That's it, up to you to decide. But if you wrote your message here, it could be very, very authentic, and you could use the same message for each person because you're actually talking to somebody whose niche you understand completely. Hyper-personalization is fantastic. I'm a big fan of it, but it needs to be done in a way that doesn't sound like everyone else who's hyper-personalizing their mails. So I'm kind of having a decision around right now of whether I actually use AI agents in LinkedIn or not. But it is here because that is the common practice at the moment. So that is what's happening. So let's run that. It's going to create this message. I pinned it from earlier. So there's the message that's come through. Okay. And now it's going to send this message to this LinkedIn URL, which is Shannon, which is our person here who we have connected with. This would have been updated to yes by a previous workflow, the one we looked at before. And actually, no, I'm sorry. No, this would not have been done. It gets updated by this workflow. So we'll leave that as no. So this is now going to send the message through to Shannon. Now, I actually don't want to send this message to Shannon. Shannon's actually someone I genuinely want to reach out to, but I actually want to make a phone call to Shannon and have a conversation. So I'm not going to send this message to Shannon. We'll keep it there. Just coincidentally, when I was setting up for this video, I discovered Shannon, and it is some business I'd like to do with this person. So I'm going to keep this very, very manual. But our last step here is to update our Google Sheet. So exactly the same again, we are updating a row. We are going to pull this information in. We're going to map each column manually, and the column to match on is LinkedIn URL. This is what I mean by column to match on. Well, we've got this whole spreadsheet here. How does n8n know which one of these rows to update? It needs a unique identifier, and these links and URLs is completely unique for each person. So it's going to look up for the right LinkedIn URL. That's the column to match on, LinkedIn URL, and it's going to pull that in. If we had run this node, we would have got this information coming through, and we can go and get the LinkedIn URL from the set personalization fields. That from this node would be the last time we had access to that LinkedIn URL. We would just pull that in, and then we're going to update our columns to connected, yes, messaged, yes, because we just sent them a message. And now that had connected with them, we were able to scrape more information from them than we had before. So we will also go ahead now and actually update this spreadsheet with the additional information that we've captured from the person. If we ran this now from top to bottom, it would check once a day. It's going to check our spreadsheet. It's going to get everyone who's not yet connected with us, but is marked as having been sent a connection request. It's going to check if we have a connection with this. You can run a loop node option here if you run into troubles with this Browserflow node bombing out, timing out, or getting some errors there. If you have connected with us, which then it'll come through, it'll wait 73 minutes, and then it'll scrape the new profile, get new information, create a message, send that message, and then update the spreadsheet that it has done has sent the message. All of this pulled together gives us a very, very powerful combination of workflows that, as a reminder, are going to search LinkedIn for us. Once we've identified those in the search that we want to connect with by marking our spreadsheet as such, we're going to send a LinkedIn connection using Browserflow. And then we're going to check daily for new connections that are coming in. And if we get new connections, we're going to create a hyper-personalized message and send it to the person. We're doing this by staying inside of the LinkedIn limits, so hopefully we do not get flagged as automators. And what we've done here is created our networking ability on LinkedIn. We've made it mostly automated, not completely automated, because we are actually scanning through this and choosing who we want to connect with. But it is quality over quantity here. Do not be using these tools to do mass outreach. You will get banned. You will have issues with LinkedIn. Rather be hyper-focused. I hope this has made sense. Join us in the community. I'd love to see you in there. Until next time then, good morning, good day, good evening, wherever you are in the world. And thank you for spending time with us. We'll see you next week. Adios.